Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Take the Initiative. I'm Rebel Trader. I'm here to give you my rundown of the Portland Sector Qualifier. I ended up taking Kylo Data Vault, ended up finishing top 64. So the story behind this, I was 62nd place, 5-1 and 2, which is 1 point shy of actually making day 2. But the thing is, I would have been able to make top cut if I had played in day 2, because the 8th place player was 9-2 and 1. And if I had won all my matches, I would have finished 9-1 and 2, which is 1 point higher. So that's, I wrote an email to FG about it. Not really a big deal. I had a great time at the event. It was in, my backyard because I live in Portland. So happy that we had something this close and I was able to go to it. I thought Kylo Data Vault was really well positioned, and surprisingly, not a lot of other people agreed. I thought there was going to be like mirrors, but I ended up not playing a ton of mirrors. Yeah, this Kylo is just insane, and I think people are really sleeping on him. So here's the deck list. This list, despite being 60 cards, is actually incredibly tight, and every card in this in this deck list won me a game at some point. They're all super valuable cards. I don't know if I would make any changes except maybe cutting the Inferno 4s or putting them in the sideboard. Inferno 4 is something you have in there because you want a 2-drop, and because you need something into Space Aggro. But Space Aggro is just such a hard matchup anyway that, it might just be worth moving it to the sideboard, I think. But even it won me a couple games today, at least one against Boba Data Vault. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any changes I would make other than perhaps moving the Inferno Force to the sideboard. But yeah, all the upgrades mattered. I'm so glad I had 4 hero upgrades. We'll get into some of the ratios later, but yeah. This deck is basically a control deck. You try to avoid taking damage late game, flip Kylo, which is usually like a massive swing in your direction, and then you just have really good blue-green villain top end. With, Anakins, Vaders, Timelies, Reinforcement Walkers, Star Destroyers. So yeah, I ended up going with Data Vault for this event because I thought that having the extra health and the extra threat density actually mattered a lot into some of the matchups that were becoming more popular after Worlds. Kira, namely, and other control decks. Because at Vegas, I played ECL, and that deck was meant to eat Han 2s and eat Talzins and Quinlins and all that stuff, and it did. I figured, Talzin and Quinlan are going to be much less well represented at this sector. Han 2 was still going to be represented, and this deck does probably slightly worse into Han 2 than the ECL version, but it does better into a lot of the other things that are going to creep up in its place, like the control decks. So that was the rationale behind Data Vault. I think the main reason to run Data Vault is, you wouldn't necessarily play the extra 10 cards in the ECL version just, for fun, but if you're getting 8 health out of it, you probably would. And even if you just compare it to 30 health, the 3 health does matter, and you're getting 10 cards for it. I'd consider going to 30 health, but I had no notes on Data Vault. The 33 did actually come up at least a couple times, so I'm glad I went with it. And yeah, I don't think I'd make too many changes to the deck. And I think this is still in a really good position. If you're looking to beat Hans, I think it does pretty well in the Palpatine. I played one Palp and I got it, so I think this deck is really strong, and you should not be sleeping on it. So this is sort of how I think of the different parts of the deck. You've got your upgrades, then what I like to call the utility cards that just do different things depending on the situation. You've got your removal, you've got your early plays, you've got your mid-game plays, and you've got your later game plays. So the upgrades for this, I really like this package of upgrades. In the past, I've been on Devotions or Kylo Sabers. Entrenched, I had never been on. This is another thing that Loopy played, and it did really well for him, so I ended up going for it. I added the third one the night before. I had a Kylo's lightsaber in there, but it just never was doing anything. And Entrenched, it just did so much work. It can take a space unit offline. You can play it on your Kylo to really shut down the ground arena, keep your Kylo out of certain thresholds. Like if you can flip a Kylo with Craving and Entrenched, it's 10 health, which can beat like a hit from a 3-power Han plus a Luke Shrink for 6. So the extra 1 health does really help you get out of critical threshold still. So you could run Kylo's lightsaber instead of it, but I do like the Entrenched, and the extra power does sometimes really matter. And just Entrenched is just also a more flexible card than Kylo's lightsaber. So I really like that. I ended up running 4 hero upgrades, which is more than you would think is necessary. I think I only ran 3 in my ECL version, but I just decided in Data Vault especially, sometimes games turn on you being able to Anakin for 6 on 6 resources. So if you're able to do that, you oftentimes will win the game on the spot. And if you're not, sometimes like you just get overwhelmed by their board presence. So I really wanted to have the extra upgrades, even though it's maybe a 5% difference in 3 versus 4. Like I thought it mattered enough, and I liked it. If you wanted to cut one of them down for something else, yeah, you could do it. But the upgrades also, one thing they can do is if you draw them in the late game, they can be pumps that help you get over damage thresholds or help out units that you wouldn't have normally been able to. I did that on stream with the Craving Power, so I do like having all these upgrades. 2 legal authorities I thought was fine. There was one match that I played both of them and it won me the game. I think you probably don't need 3, but I could see cutting an Entrenched or an extra heirloom for the 3rd legal authority if you want. But this number of upgrades, 12, felt about right. I think I ran 11 in ECL. I don't think I would change the overall number of upgrades there. For the utility stuff, timely intervention is how you get Vaders out. Piet also helps you do that. And Piet's kind of awkward. He was a fairly late add in the testing process, but when you can stick him, he's just insane, and he just can win you the game on the spot. If you're able to go like Vader or Anakin or Reinforcement Walker on top of it, he's just insane. And if he's not, he forces your opponent into taking weird lines to kill him, which helps you save damage early, which is oftentimes what you want to do. Timely reinforcements was my spicy tech that I added in. It just does so much into so many different matchups, because a lot of the Palp decks are starting to cut Overwhelming Barrage, which is hard to deal with. So it won me a game against Palp because he just couldn't deal with all the X-Wings. Eventually just goes like Devastator, and then I go Fell. It's like, all right, that's game. So yeah, they're great for finishing things out, for creating like a density of threats against control mirrors. If you saw my stream match against Kira Data Vault, I ended up playing 2 of these, creating like 14 X-Wing tokens. And that, I mean, I ended up having to play Super Laser Blast on the next turn to stay alive. But if I had found some other way to stay alive, like, that was going to win me the game. Because it gets around, Power of the Dark Side, Avenger, all that stuff. So I really like timely reinforcements. They can be good into Han 2, but you also have to be careful with Bombing Run. So if you're, I could see like moving them to the sideboard for Han 2, because if you play them game 1 and they're maining Bombing Runs, like you can lose to that. But it's honestly like not even that bad of a trade. Trading like 1 for 1, basically. So I really like timely reinforcements. I think you should be, if you're playing green decks that are meant to go late, I think you should be on this card. It's great. Piet was great all day. Sometimes you just resource him because it's awkward to play him. But when you can stick him, he's insane, and he absolutely wins you games. The removal, no notes on the main deck removal package. I had 1 each of Fell and No Glory in the sideboard, and I was bringing those in a decent amount. Barrage at 2 is totally fine. I think I played it once or twice. It's like sometimes it's just not even that good. So you really don't need the 3rd. I like 2, and I don't think I'd play any less or more. And 2 Super Laser Blast, I also thought this was fine. I could see the argument for playing the 3rd, at least in the sideboard, but I think 2 was fine. You're drawing a lot of cards with this deck anyway between Pershing and Kylo. So I'm not too worried about 2 Super Laser Blasts. I never felt like there was a position where I needed the third. Well, actually, maybe in my last game of Swiss, I would have liked having the third. But actually, I don't know if I'd even seen the first 2. So I think 2's fine for Super Laser Blast. The early drops, we've got Pershing, we've got both Super Laser and Resupply. And no notes on those. We already talked a bit about Inferno 4. It just doesn't do a whole lot. Sometimes, like, you like the filtering. Like, that is good, especially in Data Vault. But it just doesn't do a ton by itself because Han 2 isn't running any space units. Sometimes they're on Red 5. That's usually it. And I guess maybe Rebellious Hammerhead. But Inferno 4 doesn't do anything into those. It's good into the space aggro decks, but that's such a bad matchup for you anyway. And they're not like all that popular. And then into the Han 1 decks, like they do play space units, but they're not they're too big for Inferno 4 to do anything about them. So if your local meta has a lot of space aggro, maybe I'd keep them in. But that's an uphill battle anyway. So I'd probably move Inferno 4 to the sideboard, or even just cut it entirely. That's the one change I'd make to the deck, I think. But the ramp cards, I love them. We can talk a bit about how to play the ramp, especially into Han 2 Blue, because they've got lots of things that can punish you. They can go Force Lightning on 3. So if they have a ready unit, you usually don't want to Super Laser into that. Like you usually would want to like Kylo and upgrade, wait for them to either attack or spend resources, and then play your Super Laser. But sometimes, like, you might just want to be greedy if you think they're going to go for Kiadi Mundi on turn 2, because he can kill it. And then, like, game 2, when they bring in Chams, you actually are generally favoring going Super Laser attack. So, yeah, generally speaking, game 1, I favor Resupply versus Han 2. Game 2, I favor Super Laser to play around Cham. Because you really don't want them chamming on turn 2. If they're gonna cham on turn 3, like they're gonna cham on turn 3. But ramping is good either way. So sometimes like you'll be okay for going ramp into Han 2. But usually it's good. Even if you're worried about cham, sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. So I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, it's good for them if they have it, but usually you can still win that game. And then into like Control Mirrors or any deck that plays No Glory, you want to be really careful about your Super Laser Blaster tech. You generally don't want to play it if they don't have a unit on board that you can crash into it. It's like if they go Pershing, you do whatever you do on turn 1, and then they go Resupply, you don't want to play Super Laser there. You favor Resupply in those matchups, usually. And if you can go for stealing their Super Laser with No Glory, you go for it. So yeah, and you can see some examples of playing around No Glory on stream if you watch my my matchup with the Kira player. So yeah, just be careful about getting your Super Laser No Gloried, and if you can do it to your opponent, it's a super powerful play. Like if you double ramp and deny them any ramp at all, like you're probably winning that game. I did that to a Palp once. It was just over. Then we've got the like mid game units. I put Callus, Rey, and Anakin here. These are what you're playing on 5 and 6 normally. No Glory is oftentimes a really good play on 5 also. Oftentimes it's like your only way to get a villain card into the discard if you don't open Pershing. So yeah, and then Anakin obviously is just insane on 6, especially if you can double trigger him. He'll like 3 for 1 oftentimes against Han Blue if you're killing like a Sage plus a Itinerant or an Ogdo. You're just winning the game. He can also one-shot the Han 1 leader if you've got both triggers set up. So yeah, Anakin's insane. Games are oftentimes won and lost on whether you can play him on 6. Not all the time, but usually if you can play him for 2 on 6, you're winning that game. Then we've got the higher end units. I am on Vaders in this deck. You're usually not playing them without a timely RP it. I think I did that maybe once in this tournament. He just doesn't do a ton in that spot. But yeah, so I mean, Vader's insane. Getting 2-for-1s is crazy. When it goes off, it's one of the best things you can be doing in the game right now. So yeah, 3 Reinforcement Walker because it's insane. 1 Snoke. I think 1 was fine. He's like, I mean, he's good into space aggro. He has roles to play in other matchups, but usually he's like not the best of your top end cards. Like Reinforcement Walker's better. So I'm glad I went 3 Walker, 1 Snoke. 2 Avenger, 2 Devastator. These cards are just great. I don't think I need to explain those. So yeah, let's get into the matchups that I played today. So round 1 was Boba Data Vault, and I got this one 2-0. Boba Data Vault it might seem like it's a hard matchup for you, but it's really not, because you can play a bunch of things to soak up their indirect, and then once you flip Kylo, like he can eat all of the indirect, and he's just a massive thing to deal with. You can set up overwhelming barrages to deal with them. You can ramp into Devastator later on in the game. The big thing that you have to avoid is letting them like get a Boba deploy onto like a massive space unit with like power protection, because you want to be using like Power of the Dark Side is a way to deal with that. But once they flip onto the leader, like your Fel doesn't work, your No Glory doesn't work, so you've got to like go for barrage. Usually it's like too big for craving power, so you've got to be really, really careful about playing control to prevent them from getting that Boba deployed onto a big spaceship like a Dornian or a Ruthless Raider or even a Fire Spray. But if it's on something smaller, like you can kill it with Anakin. The good Boba players, I think, are often the times not even necessarily going for that because they're playing hard around power, so they'll be flipping Boba to the ground. So you got to be ready for that. I don't think my opponent did that in either of our games. I think in both times he might have actually flipped it onto like a Kylo silencer that got immediately Anakin'd. So that's one thing you can do. So I feel pretty good about Boba Data Vault. Got up my first one. Second one was Palp Yellow, and I didn't test this a ton. So I was kind of not sure how it would go, but it ended up just being favorable for me because the one thing they could do that was super annoying was Bazine. And he sort of had me on the back foot a bit, but I just had enough threat density that I could deal with anything that he was putting out, and then I could actually start hitting his base with my big stuff. And then usually, like when he would Palpatine flip to steal something, I'd just Kylo flip and Craving Power it, and then like sort of take over the game from there. Timely Reinforcements was big in this one. It came down and just won me a game, and I think it was game 2. Yeah, Timely Reinforcements, crazy in this matchup. I think this one's favorable. I need to test it a bit more. I mean, Palp Yellow is a crazy deck, and I did sort of think about it for a bit for this tournament. Ended up just not having enough time to test it and deciding to go hard into this Kylo. But Palp Yellow is legit, and I think it's definitely worth exploring how this matchup works. But I think it should be pretty favorable for Kylo Data Vault. It's certainly winnable. And then I played 2 Hantu Blues in a row, beat them both. So we can talk a bit about Hantu Blue. It's the most popular deck right now. This deck is favored into it. But sometimes, especially if it's a really good player that you're up against, like you can lose to it. I played the night before with my teammate Alex Krez, who ended up making top 8 with Hantu Blue. We played like 5 matches, or 5 games rather. He won 4 of them. I got only 1 of them. It can be rough. Like sometimes they just hit you hard early and then get in a position where they have a Crate Dragon and can just beat you. Or they like get all of their Lukes in a row, and you can go like Vader 2-for-1, but then they go Luke, kill your Vader, and then you have to play a removal. So it's like you're getting a 2-for-1, but then they're getting a 2-for-1 back. And sometimes they can get to a point where they're playing multiple things a turn, and you're only being able to answer one of them. So it's rough. But normally, like you are gonna take control of the board on turn 5 or 6, or turn resource 6 or 7 by going like Anakin killing a couple of their things, Kylo kill another thing. And then even if they like rivals fall, their board has usually been sufficiently degraded, and then they're not playing anything that turn because they rivals falled. So yeah. The biggest thing you probably have to be careful of is Luke, because Crate Dragon It comes down late in the game enough that you should have stabilized. You do have to worry about it, of course, but usually it comes into a point where it should be pretty intuitive to play around Krayt Dragon. But Luke is you've got to be really wary about getting Luke or Anakin. And that's one of the places where I think Entrenched is super relevant. Round 5 was Han 1 green. This was Justin from KTOD. I was kind of worried about this match because I know he's a very good player and he's been working on this, but I just ended up kind of crushing him. Sorry, I had a brief interruption there, but we were talking about my round 5 against Justin on the Han 1 green. So game 1, I think we both ramped, but I ended up being able to play an Anakin on 6 resources to kill his Han. And then flipping Kylo the next turn and stabilizing and pretty much running right over him. And then game 2 is a bit closer. He managed to deal a lot more damage earlier. I didn't have the Anakin on 6. Then I flipped a big Kylo, played the Entrenched on him, and that basically prevented him from playing anything on the ground for the rest of the match. I think at some point he was able to kill the Kylo because I started using it to attack into like his techs or L3s or something. But then it was basically a space game. At some point I took his hauler, and from that point it was pretty much over. So yeah, I think this deck does really well into Han 1 green. If you're worried about that, like this is a great way to answer it. So I'm 5-0 at this point, and this is where things start to go downhill. So round 6, I am against Kira Data Vault. This one was streamed, so you can go watch it. Game 1, he main decked Relentlesses, so he had an advantage game 1. Ends up taking it. We had that play I was talking about where I would go like timing reinforcement 2 turns in a row to play 14 X-Wings. And then I just have to Super Laser Blast next turn because he had like just enough stuff on board that he was going to win if I didn't. So that sucked. But I ended up losing game 1. Game 2 is like one of the most insane matches I've ever played. But it really just came down to like I was able to get a card advantage early, and eventually I was able to run him out of removal and stick a couple big threats, and then I did like 30 damage in the course of 2 turns and ended up having a craving power at the end for the last 2 damage I needed to win right as we were going into time. So we didn't even play any game 3. It just ended up being a 1-1 draw. The next round, this, I don't know if I made the right choice here. It was round 7. It was Vader Yellow. I know, like I was saying, this is the worst matchup, and I intentionally didn't bring in like any of the tech that would make it a winnable matchup, because I just thought, maybe I'll play it once and I'll lose to it. But he was like, maybe we should draw, and I was like, yeah, like I don't feel great about this matchup. He didn't feel great about the matchup either, which if I were in his shoes, I would have felt good about it. But so he didn't feel great about the matchup. He was like, maybe we can draw, because he had a draw earlier against Akira. I'm actually not sure how that happened. I think that game is on stream, so I'll have to go and look at it. But so he had a draw, I had a draw. We were both 5-0-1, and we were like, yeah, let's intentionally draw, because we're not sure about the matchup. I was also exhausted from playing that control mirror on stream, so we ended up intentionally drawing. I defend this because I think it would have been a loss either way for me, and like there are situations where having a draw is better than having a loss. But overall, it was probably not the right decision to intentionally draw there. But I don't think it would have affected the outcome much because I ended up losing my round 8, and that's what really cost me the top cut. So it was Han 1 blue, which is normally is a favorable matchup, but this ended up being one of the ones where the 65-35 ended up going the other way. I got game 1 despite not ramping. I think I ended up hitting an Anakin on 6 for double to kill 2 things, and then flipping Kylo and taking over the game. Game 2, I drew like nothing that did anything, and he was able to sneak a bunch of damage through and got me. And then game 3 was like a grind fest, and there was a point I think I could have won game 3, but I misplayed. There was a point, I think he had a Falcon out or some space unit. I could have gone Avenger to kill it, but then I would have had no resources, and if he had Falcon Surprise Strike, he would have got it. So I decided not to play the Avenger and to play like an Anakin or something to deal with it. And then he just kept being able to play multiple units, and I was never able to get the Avenger down. And eventually he just got through. So well played by my opponent. He was super like apologetic afterwards, which he did not have to be. Like it was it was a game he was playing. And he ended up, I don't think he ended up doing all that well on day 2, but yeah. So that's how it went. If I were to do it again, I probably would not have intentionally drew in round 7. But I still, that wasn't the thing that cost me getting into day 2. It was losing round 8. So I think it's a defensible draw, but going back, I probably would not have done it. So let that be your lesson. Finished 5-1-2. Again, I still could have theoretically made Top Cut if they had let me play. I did write an email to FG saying, hey, maybe it should be top 64 or 18 points, whichever is higher, to avoid situations like this. So yeah, and it wasn't just me that was in that position. Like my round 7 opponent also ended up losing in round 8. So he was also 5-1-2, and there were 3 other people that were 5-2-1 that could have equaled the 8th place player, who was 9-2-1, who also happened to be that Kira player for my round 6, funnily enough. So yeah, there's no perfect way to do the cutoff thing, but I ended up being one of the people that got screwed over by the way that they did it this time. But I think somebody's always getting screwed over. So overall, I had a great time at the event, though. It's not a major complaint, but is what it is. But the point is, this Kylo deck is legit, and it does have the ability to compete with the top decks. So I would seriously consider it if you're playing in an event anytime soon. Let's talk about Data Vault versus ECL. So these are like all the matchups that I think are the defining ones in the meta. You might want to add Thrawn Data Vault. It had a decent showing here, but I think it's in basically the same position. So into Han 2, I found that ECL does a lot better into Han 2. Maybe not a lot better. It's still favorable for both decks, but ECL is more favored into the Han 2 matchup because you can go Vader on 6 or ECL Anakin on 6 and just get even more value, totally destroy their board. If you've got like a Ray down or gloried last time, it's just insane. I ended up going. I played the ECL version at Vegas, and I went 5-0 into Han 2, and that was when Force Store existed. So I think ECL is better into Han 2, which you might say if ECL is better into the number 1 represented deck, why not just play that? Because I think there's a couple reasons, and Kira is I think the main one, and that is Data Vault is much better than ECL into Kira. Because you're running those extra cards, you've got that extra health. Oftentimes, Kira is going to be more aggressive into you in the early game, so the extra health does actually matter. And the extra threat density matters a lot because you're able to actually grind with them. It's still, I would say, not a favorable matchup for either deck. But with Data Vault, you can usually play it to a draw like I did on stream. With ECL, you're usually going to get ran over. That's what happened to me at Vegas. I lost one to the Kira Data Vault. Into Han 1, I haven't tested the ECL into Han 1 a ton. From the little I have, I think the Data Vault does a little bit better because of the extra health, but it is favorable for the ECL also. So into the Han 1, I think into either of the Han decks, I think you can pick either one and you'll be favored either way. I think slightly better for ECL into Han 2, slightly better for Data Vault into Han 1, but I might even be wrong on that, and ECL might actually even be better into Han 1, but I just think that Han 1 has a bit more sneaky damage than Han 2, so I think the extra health matters more in that matchup. But either way, you're favored into both Hans with ECL or Data Vault. But Kira, Data Vault is much better. I think Data Vault is also better in Palpatine for similar reasons because you have more threat density, because you're playing more cards in your deck, and if the game's going long, you're going to need that. Into the aggro decks, at least in space aggro, ECL does better, which seems paradoxical because you're giving up less health, but the ECL being able to take over the game earlier matters a lot. Sabine, it might be kind of a toss up. I didn't test Sabine because I didn't think it was going to be that good into this meta, so I don't think a lot of people are going to play it. But the space aggro is like the Vader decks is a lot bigger of a deal. And I'd also put like Boba Data Vault into this space aggro category, even though maybe it deserves its own spot. I think it actually does. I think if I were writing this presentation again, I'd put Boba Data Vault as a separate thing, and I'd say Kylo Data Vault does better than Kylo ECL into that because of the extra health, because they're not usually giving you a ton of ECL targets. But into like Vader Yellow, ECL is better because you can go ECL Inferno 4 on turn 1 to shut off their production of tokens. But that only works if they don't open Republic Y-Wing. Yeah, I played a version of Kylo ECL at a planetary qualifier that was running a bunch of tech in the sideboard to deal with Vader Yellow, and I was able to win that matchup the one time I played it. So if you're expecting heavy space aggro meta, maybe go for ECL. I was not expecting to play a ton of it at this tournament. I expected to maybe face it once and then lose to it as Data Vault. I ended up playing it once and drawing with it, which is effectively the same as losing to it. So that's what it worked out to. CAD Targentown, you're both favored into that matchup. I think, I don't think there's really a significant difference between ECL or Data Vault. Both of them are going to crush CAD. Ray Data Vault it's similar to Kira. The Data Vault does better because you have more threat density. And then I put the Lady Luck on here, which is basically like, does the deck lose to itself more often due to like drawing a bad hand? And from that perspective, the ECL one does do better. Because with Data Vault, the extra 10 cards, sometimes it just means that you see a bunch of the wrong cards at the wrong time. Like you'll draw a handful of Fell, Devastator, No Glory, Ray, but nothing else that you can actually play. But with ECL, like it's you're much more likely to get a playable starting hand. And also the other big thing is on 6, like ECL can almost always play like an Anakin or a Vader, or you can even ECL Ray to shut something down. But with Data Vault, you're oftentimes depending on drawing Anakin plus like the stuff to make it work on 6 or some kind of removal. So just ECL is, I think, slightly more consistent of a deck. But the extra threat density favors you as Data Vault into a bunch of the more grindy decks, which I thought were going to be more prevalent at this tournament than at Vegas. That's why I decided to go for Data Vault, because I expected there to be a rise of Kiras, Palpatines, Rays, and I expected to be able to beat Han 2, Han 1 CADs. But if your meta is not super control-y, I might go for the ECL and run some of the tech to beat Vader. I might do a video in the future on like how to beat Vader with Kylo ECL, because it is possible to do. It's much harder with Kylo Data Vault because it's so much harder to shut down their TIE Fighter production early on. So those are my thoughts on the matchup. Last shout-outs. Here, I got to shout out my team, Late Night Gaming, Alex, Micah, and Carlos for making the trip over to Portland. Alex for jamming a bunch of games with me the night before, and he also made top 8. Carlos made day 2. I'm not sure exactly what place he finished in, but he definitely made day 2. Micah and I both scrubbed out on day 1, but it was great to see these guys. And shout out to Loopy also for theorycrafting Kylo Data Vault with me. He made top 4 at a PQ last week, so shout out to him. I wouldn't have played Piets without him, I think, and they won me a lot of games. So, shout out to D-Rod and everyone that helped with the production of the stream. I did commentary for just the finals, I think, but I was helping out with other stream stuff throughout day 2. Shout out to D-Rod for bringing some equipment. We were able to put 2 stream tables up. And we were able to record most of the day 2 matches that did not get streamed. I think actually all of them on day 2. So we should have some bonus coverage coming out this week of those games that didn't get streamed, but were at the stream tables. So yeah, shout out to that. Shout out to everyone that did commentary, and Loopy again for producing. And then I won this uncut sheet for being top 64, even though I didn't make day 2. And because of the way that they gave it out to everyone that made day 2 on day 2, but they gave it out to the 3 of us that were in top 64 but not day 2 on day 1. So, and because I ended up being the closest one to the table, I got to be the first person to ever receive an uncut sheet for Star Wars Unlimited. So that's a huge honor. I'm going down in history for that. And yeah, I don't have it beside me. It's in a different room. But otherwise I'd pull it out and show it to you guys. But it looks really cool. And yeah, so shout out to FFG for running a great event. I had a great time. And if you want to play Kylo Data Vault, do it. Now is the time. And on that note, remember to always take the initiative.